excited.
Christina, this Antares rocket has become a workhorse for Northrop Grumman in contributing to that supply chain for the International Space Station. How robust is this vehicle? How important is tonight's launch as we head into a busy period aboard the International Outpost?
So, Rob, NG-14 was designated as a mission essential mission by NASA during the COVID-19 pandemic, and our team has been focused on being ready on time despite the additional restrictions and mitigations put in place to keep our workforce safe. The Antares launch system and the Virginia Space Launch Pad we both use are designated to be very robust, which has allowed us to achieve 7 consecutive successful Antares 230 and 230 plus flights that enabled successful Cygnus missions to the ISS. Antares is our 230 plus workforce, and we are carrying Cygnus loaded with nearly 8,000 pounds of cargo tonight. Northrop Grumman is very proud of our contributions in supplying critical research and cargo to the crew on the space station. And for me personally, as a Native American from the Navajo Nation, I am truly honored to be part of our human exploration program, and I hope to inspire others to reach for the stars when setting their goals.
Thank you very much, Christina. Christina Halona of Northrop Grumman with us this evening by phone. The countdown for Cygnus's launch now stands at T-minus 23 minutes, 14 seconds, and counting. At the time of launch at 8:16 and 14 seconds p.m. Central Time, 9:16:14 p.m. Eastern, the International Space Station and its 3 residents will be flying 258 statute miles over the southern Indian Ocean. Antares and Cygnus will arc out to the southeast from Wallops to start the rendezvous and a series of pre-programmed engine firings that will lead to its arrival at the International Space Station and its robotic capture Monday morning. Station Commander Chris Cassidy of NASA, backed up by Russian cosmonaut Ivan Wagner from Roscosmos, will be in the cupola at the robotic workstation monitoring Cygnus' systems during its final approach, with Cassidy using the Canadarm2 robotic arm to reach out and grapple the Northrop Grumman resupply vehicle. At that point, he will turn the robotic chores over to a team of ground controllers here in Houston who will maneuver Cygnus into an installation position to be installed and bolted into place on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module of the International Space Station for a stay of about 2 months. The Cygnus is scheduled to depart the station in mid-December for a 2-week free flight in which additional scientific experiments will be conducted.
Copy not required.
On board the International Space Station, Cassidy, Wagner, and Russian cosmonaut Anatoly Ivanishin are asleep at this hour, less than 3 weeks away from the end of their 6.5-month mission on the orbital outpost. They are scheduled to return to Earth on the evening of October 21st U.S. time, which will be the morning of October 22nd on the steppe of Kazakhstan, for a parachute-assisted landing in their Soyuz MS-16 spacecraft. That will come 8 days after the arrival of the next trio of residents to the International Space Station, NASA astronaut Kate Rubins, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Sergei Kud-Sverchkov of Roscosmos, who are in final training right now at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan for their launch on October 14th in the Soyuz MS-17 spacecraft. Inside 21 minutes until launch, everything continues to proceed on track and on time for a liftoff at 8:16 and 14 seconds p.m. Eastern Time.
We'll check 379.
The ascent profile for Antares and Cygnus following liftoff calls for main engine cutoff on the first stage of the Antares rocket about 3 minutes and 18 seconds after launch, followed 6 seconds later by the separation of the first stage. Some 30 seconds later, the fairing, which encapsulates the Cygnus resupply vehicle, will also separate, exposing Cygnus during the uphill ride to its preliminary orbit. Stage 2 ignition on the Antares rocket is scheduled at about the 4-minute, 7-second mark into the flight. It will burn for 2 minutes and 44 seconds until Stage 2 burnout occurs, putting Cygnus into its initial orbit with the Cygnus vehicle itself separating from the second stage of Antares at about the 9-minute, 9-second mark into the flight. The UltraFlex solar arrays on Cygnus are scheduled to be deployed about 2 hours and 8 minutes into the mission. We will not be on the air live during that activity. It's about a 30-minute procedure. We will, however, provide updates on the web on nasa.gov and the station blog site when solar array deploy is completed later this evening. If everything goes as planned, Cygnus again will arrive in the wee hours Monday morning at the International Space Station, arriving along the intersection called the R-bar, the radial vector, which is an imaginary line drawn between the International Space Station and the Earth. The Cygnus will arrive about 400 feet directly below the station and inchworm its way up to the point where Cassidy will use the robotic arm to reach out and grapple the resupply craft. The capture of Cygnus is scheduled right now at 4:20 a.m. Central Time, 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday morning.
And Ops 2 LC, countdown?
Go ahead, LC.
Yeah, just be advised, Step 386 will be required for today's op.
Copy that.
And LC, this is prop lead. Actual F1N level is 10 of 10.
Copy 10 of 10, 381, Core 1. Provide status on F1N level.
LC Core 1, countdown 1, standby.
As we approach the 17-minute mark into the countdown, propellant loading is complete. You see the venting at the interstage area of the two-stage Antares rocket. Everything continues to be green across the board at Wallops. The weather is perfect. Everything all set for Antares to begin its flight to deliver the Cygnus resupply vehicle to its preliminary orbit.
And CMDLC, countdown 1.
LC Core 1, countdown 1.
Go ahead, Core 1.
Fuel level adjustment is not required.
Copy, not required. We'll go ahead and check 382. And Prop 2, Step 383, configure OCCS for no adjustment to fuel level. CMDLC, countdown 1.
LC to CMD.
Yeah, you go for Step 385. You can transfer Cygnus to launch mode.
LC CMD, in work.
Prop 2. LC, this is Prop 2 on countdown 1. OCCS configured for no adjustment to fuel level.
At T-minus 16 minutes and counting, those calls from the Range Control Center engineers for Northrop Grumman indicate that the fuel loading for the Antares rocket is at the proper level, into stable replenish now. No adjustment for fuel required this evening, and Cygnus is about to go on internal power. Tonight's launch kicks off a very busy period of activity at the International Space Station. Again, a launch tonight results in Cygnus arriving at the station in the wee hours Monday morning. That will be followed in a couple of weeks by a Soyuz crew rotation, as we mentioned, with Kate Rubins of NASA and her two Russian crewmates scheduled to launch October 14th from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan for a two-orbit rendezvous, a 3-hour fast-track journey to the International Space Station that will kick off an 8-day handover with Chris Cassidy and his two Russian crewmates, Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Wagner, who we said a moment ago are in the home stretch of their 6.5-month mission on the station. They'll be returning to Earth on the night of October 21st, U.S. time. And right on the heels of that, on October 31st. On the 20th.
Just passed through T-minus 15 minutes. We'll be coming up on our polling for our final count, proceeding with our final countdown in just about 2 minutes.
On the 20th anniversary of the launch of Expedition 1, Bill Shepard, Yuri Gudzenko, and Sergei Krikalev. On October 31st, the Crew 1 mission is scheduled to launch aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. The Resilience Crew Dragon spacecraft with Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi on board, scheduled to arrive at the International Space Station on November 1st. T-minus 14 minutes and counting.
And CMD, I'll wait for your call on 387.
LC, this is CMD. Cygnus is in launch mode and nominal.
Copy that, CMD. We'll check step 387 complete.
Here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, a final go has been passed on to Flight Director T.J. Creamer by the Cygnus Mission Director in Dulles. Both Antares and Cygnus are go for launch. At this hour, the International Space Station flying 258 miles over the South Atlantic, about to swing just to the south of the continent of Africa. Again, at the time of launch, at 8:16 and 14 seconds p.m. Central Time, the station and its 3 residents who are asleep at this hour will be flying over the southern Indian Ocean.
Countdown 1, step 388. At this time, I want to poll to proceed with final countdown. GSO?
GSO, go.
RSO?
RSO's go.
TD?
TD is go.
Prop lead?
Prop lead is go.
Stage 1?
Stage 1 is go.
MES1?
MES1 is go.
GCE?
GCE is go.
ACE?
ACE is go.
Mars?
Mars is go.
CMD?
CMD is go.
LD?
LD is go.
NG?
In honor of Kalpana Chawla, whose research on astronaut health and safety during spaceflight helped pave the way for humans to live and work in space, Northrop Grumman is go.
Copy that, Northrop Grumman. We are go to proceed with final countdown. Check step 388. Ops 2, LC, be advised, step 389 is not required for today's operation. Step 390 will not be required for today's operation.
And Ops 2 copies.
Coming up on the T-minus 11 minute mark, that final poll for launch conducted at the Range Control Center at the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, as Antares is set to begin its journey of about 9 minutes in duration to deliver the Cygnus resupply craft to its preliminary orbit.
And passing T-minus 11 minutes.
Coming up on the T-minus 10 minute mark, fuel loading complete. The weather is perfect. Everything is all set to begin the journey of Cygnus to the International Space Station.
And T-minus 10 minutes.
No issues being worked in the Range Control Center at Wallops Island, Virginia, or at Dulles, Virginia, where the Cygnus spacecraft team for Northrop Grumman monitoring Cygnus' systems, ready to take over at the time of spacecraft separation just over 9 minutes after launch.
And Ops 1, Step 391, enable ACS VDMs.
LC Ops 1, ACS VDMs internal power on.
ACS VDMs enabled, voltage nominal, and commands cleared.
Copy that. Elect 1, check 391, check 392. And launch team be advised, Step 393 will not be required for today's operation.
Once Cygnus arrives at the International Space Station in the wee hours Monday morning and is grappled and then installed and bolted into place, a series of leak checks at the berthing interface between Cygnus and the Unity module will be conducted by NASA astronaut and station commander Chris Cassidy, making sure that we have a tight seal between the Cygnus and the station before he begins the process of opening the hatch to Cygnus and the start of the unloading of the most time-critical experiments and supplies that are being brought up on the Cygnus resupply vehicle.
Copy, site control, check Step 394.
Coming up on the 7.5-minute mark until launch. Passing through 7 minutes until launch.
T-minus 7 minutes. And Ops 2, you go to initialize ground ordnance power supplies.
LC Ops 2, ground ordnance power supplies initialized.
LC,
Ground ordnance power supplies nominal.
LC prop lead, ACSO activation verified.
Copy all their prop lead. Ops 2, elect 1, check 395, 396, and 397.
T-minus 6 minutes and counting. Northrop Grumman preparing to provide Friday night lights down the eastern seaboard. Everything is go for launch.
LC site control, aft bay ECS transfer to GN2 confirmed.
Roger that, site control. Check Step 398. And launch team be advised, Step 399 not required for today's operation.
Coming up on the T-minus 5 minute mark.
T-minus 5 minutes. Ops 1, transfer avionics to internal power.
LC Ops 1, avionics internal power on. Stand by for command completion. LC Ops 1, external power off.
Internal power is nominal.
Roger that, Elect 1, Ops 1, open STS umbiloop.
LC Ops 1, FTS umbiloop open and green.
LC Elect 2, FTLU and FTS receiver indications are nominal.
Copy, Elect 2. Ops 1, you go to send, all arm command.
LC Ops 1, all arm command sent.
SNAs, ODMs, all arm.
NASA TD, report range status.
LCTD, range is green.
T-minus 4 minutes and counting. Everything in order. No issues being worked at the Range Control Center at Wallops.
And launch team be advised, phase 3 dynamic limits will be active at T-minus 3 minutes.
FC commanded to flight mode.
T-minus 3 minutes and counting.
Auto sequence start. ODM bus voltages and currents nominal.
Copy all, Elect 1. GNC1, verify ready for nav mode.
LC, GNC1, orb nav ready for nav mode.
Roger that. Ops 2, step 414, switch to nav.
LC Ops 2, orb nav switch to nav.
Copy that, Ops 2, check 414.
LC, GNC1, orb nav telemetry verified.
Roger that, GNC1.
Coming up on the T-minus 2 minute mark, Antares systems in excellent shape, no issues.
T-minus 2 minutes on my mark. Mark.
.90 seconds until launch.
T-minus 1 minute, 30 seconds. T-minus 1 minute.
Well into the terminal count. T-minus 50 seconds and counting.
T-minus 30 seconds. Mark.
T-minus 15 seconds.
T-minus 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Engine start and liftoff. The SS Kalpana takes flight, sights set on the International Space Station. Pitch and roll program are in.
Vehicle systems are nominal.
Engines at 100%. Attitude nominal, vehicle subsystems nominal. Engines are steady and nominal, 100%. Altitude, 20,000 feet.
1 minute into the flight, everything looking good on Antares.
Passing through max Q, attitude nominal. Engines at 100.
Antares passing through the area of maximum dynamic pressure.
50,000 feet. Attitude nominal. All vehicle subsystems are nominal.
Coming up on the 2-minute mark into the flight, everything looking good.
Just passing 100,000 feet. Attitude nominal. Vehicle subsystems nominal. Engines remain at 100%. Attitude nominal. Vehicle subsystems nominal.
Good reports from the Range Control Center at Wallops.
30 seconds to throttle down.
Throttle down is the precursor to main engine cutoff for the first stage. Coming up on the 3-minute mark into the flight.
Engines at 55% thrust.
Standing by for main engine cutoff on the first stage.
Main engine cutoff. Stage 1 separation. Attitude nominal.
Stage 1 separation confirmed from the Range Control Center. Antares flying straight and true.
Antares in coast phase until proper conditions for fairing separation and stage 2 ignition are achieved.
Fairing separation confirmed. Cygnus now exposed to the atmosphere as it continues its trek uphill to its preliminary orbit.
Stage 2 ignition.
This will be about a 2-minute 44-second burn of the second stage engine.
Attitude nominal. Attitude nominal. Vehicle subsystems nominal. 140 kilometers.
Coming up on the 5-minute mark into the flight.
All systems continue nominal. Altitude 150 kilometers. All systems nominal.
The second stage burnout is scheduled at about the 6-minute 51-second mark into the flight.
Altitude 170 kilometers, roughly 1 minute to stage 2 burnout. Altitude 184 kilometers, all systems nominal, roughly 30 seconds to stage 2 burnout.
Six minutes, 40 seconds into the flight, standing by for stage 2 burnout.
Stage 2 tail-off. Stage 2 burnout.
And Cygnus has reached the preliminary orbital insertion.
Antares will coast for roughly 100 seconds prior to payload separation.
And as you heard, the next major event will be Cygnus's separation from the second stage.
Attitude nominal.
Cygnus has begun its journey to reach the International Space Station early Monday morning.
All vehicle subsystems nominal. Altitude 191 kilometers, roughly 1 minute to payload separation.
Liftoff occurred right on the dime at 8:16 and 14 seconds p.m. Central Time, 9:16:14 p.m. Eastern Time. The International Space Station and its 3 crew members, who are asleep at this hour, approaching the southwest coast of Australia.
Altitude remains 192 kilometers, roughly 30 seconds to payload separation. All systems nominal.
At the time of Cygnus's separation from the second stage, the operations will move to Dulles, Virginia, and the Cygnus Flight Control Room under the direction of Mission Director Zach Dwyer.
Cygnus separation.
Spacecraft separation confirmed. The SS Kalpana Chawla well on its way to the International Space Station.
CCAM initiated. Attitude nominal. LC, ace out.
All right, Ace, great job calling it out, and great job to the Northrop Grumman and NASA Wallops and everybody else, Mars, on getting this mission off in difficult times. Okay, launch team, we're going to go ahead and proceed now with our post-launch checklist. And prop lead, I assume 425 is already started. And prop lead LC, countdown 1.
Yeah, we've already began our warm helium and cold helium purging.
Okay, copy that. We'll check 425 complete. GNC1 LC, step 426. Let me know when you've provided the Antares state vector to Cygnus.
LC GNC1, state vector submission and work.
Okay, copy and work.
LC.
Go ahead, LD.
LC, this is LD. I'd just like to thank the launch team for an outstanding effort. Way to go, team. Thank you, Mars, NASA, and the Antares launch team. Oh, and Cygnus, too. So thanks, everybody. Great job. Carry on, LC.
Thank you, LD.
This is Mission Control Houston. Cygnus now safely in orbit en route to the International Space Station. A perfect launch from the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. On the line with us right now is the International Space Station's Deputy Program Manager, Kenny Todd. Kenny, good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Rob. It's great to be with you. Thanks.
Well, Cygnus now safely en route to the International Space Station after that launch scrub last night. Carrying some 4 tons of supplies and experiments, including a couple of nitrogen tanks. Give us sort of the big picture on what's on board Cygnus, why these nitrogen tanks are important, and some of the other highlights for what this supply run will mean for the international complex.
You bet, Rob. First of all, let me offer my congratulations to the entire Northrop Grumman team. It was a spectacular launch. I don't think you can ever get tired of watching these night launches. And as you said yesterday, creating the artificial dawn for a few minutes there, it's just gorgeous. And the entire launch team there at the Wallops Flight Facility, again, they just do a great job at launching these vehicles. But yeah, we're very excited about having Cygnus off the pad on the way coming to the International Space Station with about 8,000 pounds of cargo, of which over a third of it is really committed to the science and utilization of the space station and really taking advantage of this low Earth orbit asset where we can do some things in microgravity that quite frankly we can't do anywhere else on the planet. So we're always excited to have new people coming to station and really trying to see what kind of things that they can learn in this environment. So you mentioned earlier about the nitrogen tanks. We were a little anxious to get this flight off the ground because of the fact that it had some additional nitrogen on board. As most people who follow station on a regular basis might have heard, we've been dealing with a pesky little atmosphere leak on board the station for the better part of 3 or 4 months now. Station in general always leaks a little bit, but over the last several months we've seen an increase in that. Which anytime you're dealing with a leak on a pressurized spacecraft, you certainly want to know where it is, and you certainly want to make sure that you have enough consumables on board to feed that leak until you find it. And that's kind of where we find ourselves right now, as we're working through several different troubleshooting efforts to try to locate this leak. But getting these tanks on board certainly again helps us up our consumables in the nitrogen area and gives us a little more runway as we try to sort through this issue.
Kenny, the Cygnus vehicle arrives at the station pre-dawn on Monday. This kicks off a very busy period for the station and its crew. If you would, give us a little snapshot of the air traffic control pattern over the next few weeks with crews and vehicles coming and going.
You bet, Rob. Last year we were around this same time frame. I remember doing a press conference and calling last year around this same time frame the season of EVAs, because we were getting ready to swap out batteries, and that was coming with a huge series of EVAs along with fixing the alpha magnetic spectrometer and again another large number of EVAs. This year we find ourselves really with just a season of visiting vehicles, and it starts tonight with the launch of this Cygnus spacecraft. We'll get it on board here Monday morning, and then on the 14th of October, we'll see our next Soyuz spacecraft with our next crew coming to the space station. That particular spacecraft will actually perform a 2-orbit rendezvous on its way to the space station, which hasn't been done before with a crewed spacecraft. So we're pretty excited to see how all that works. And again, it'll be pretty amazing when you think about a crew launching from the ground here and roughly 3 hours later being on the International Space Station. So we're excited. That's coming on October the 14th. And then about a week later, on the 21st, Chris Cassidy and his 2 Russian crewmates will return to Earth. after their approximately 6 month stay on board the state of SpaceX 21, which is a cargo vehicle, and again bringing another several thousand pounds of mostly science and utilization to the space station. So this crew is going to be really busy throughout this full season, leading up to basically the end of the year.
And Kenny, finally, before that happens, we're just weeks away from a coveted anniversary on November 2nd, that being the 20th anniversary of a permanent human presence on the station. In the course of history, in your mind, how significant is that milestone in human exploration? What has it meant for the station and the international partnership?
You know, Rob, we for those of us that go around and talk around and to people outside our business, sometimes it comes as a shock when we tell them, especially the younger generation that for your entire life, you haven't known a time when there hasn't been somebody living off the planet, and in some ways they know that, and they don't see a world that's any different. But for those of us that have been around a number of years, going to orbit was such an amazing feat years ago, and to think we've been living there for the last 20 years is almost incomprehensible. But the thing that really strikes me, Rob, about the fact that we've had international crews living in orbit for the last 20 years is looking down at the Earth and seeing what all has transpired on the Earth in that time frame, with disasters and conflicts, successes and failures and things that have gone on around our planet. And in the midst of all of that, as an international partnership, we know no boundaries. So we can load more and every crew member that launches well as avoid the need to almost will come back and tell you when somebody asks what you see when you look down, and it's you don't see boundaries. And that is something that over the last 20 years I think really hits home for me is the fact that even with everything that goes on here as we circle around this sun every continue as a partnership to work together and do amazing things, and it's probably one of the most harshest environments known to humans.
Kenny, engineers such as yourself always say that space is hard, which it is, but tonight Northrop Grumman made it look easy, and Cygnus is well on its way to the International Space Station. Kenny Todd, the Deputy ISS Program Manager, joining us tonight. Thanks very much, Kenny. Appreciate it.
Hey, happy to be with you. Take care, Rob. Thank you.
Propellant tanks will begin the engine chill-in sequence. This is where we cool the turbo pumps to avoid thermal shocks when we start the pumps at T-minus 2 seconds to light the Merlin engines. And we're inside 7 minutes, and we've heard the call that engine chill has begun right on time. On the GPS spacecraft, the team has transitioned the GPS spacecraft to internal battery power. That finished at about T-minus 13.5 minutes. That is their last major activity that's required before launch. On the range, the eastern range is ready to support. They are green and go. And the good news on the weather, while we've been dodging thick clouds that may have forced a launch scrub, for the moment the weather officer believes that the cloud layers are thin enough and may just get past us that we aren't going to have an issue. We'll continue to listen, but 6 minutes and 19 seconds to go, we should be able to get there. Now, if we do have to call a hold on today's launch, we have a backup opportunity tomorrow. Liftoff would be a few minutes earlier at 9:39 p.m. Eastern Time. But right now, all systems continue to be go for a liftoff just past 43 minutes after the hour.
As we mentioned earlier, today's mission is for the U.S. Space Force launching the GPS-3 Space Vehicle 4 payload. Now we'll hear from the Air Force's Lieutenant Colonel Margaret Sullivan and Lockheed Martin's Tanya Ladwig for more information on tonight's payload.
We use GPS every day.
Today, everyone has GPS technology in their pocket.
25 years of space-based position, navigation, and timing, supporting the entire world.
GPS touches the lives of everyday people all the time. It's changed the way we work, it's changed the way we play, with over 4 billion users worldwide. We're already preparing for the next generation of GPS satellites with our GPS 3 follow-on contract, and we're inserting greater technology for greater capability.
The brand new United States Space Force owns this premier asset and provides this position, navigation, and timing service to everyone.
We're just over 4 minutes from liftoff. Everything continues to be go for launch. Right now, the clamp arms around the second stage are opening. We are about to retract the strongback away from the Falcon 9. We're going to move it about 2 degrees away. You can see on the monitor the arms are open. We've pressurized the stages as part of that. And right now we are moving away, like I said, about 2 degrees away. At liftoff, hydraulics will then pull the strongback to a position that's 45 degrees away from the rocket to make sure we're clear for liftoff. Now, first stage fuel loading did complete on time at T-minus 6 minutes. We're waiting to hear first stage LOX load complete at T-minus 3, and then a minute later, LOX loading on second stage. Strongback lower has been announced closeout for flight, so the strongback is in position, ready to support launch. At 1 minute before liftoff, you're going to hear the announcement Falcon 9 is in startup. That means the rocket's own internal computers are autonomously controlling the Falcon 9 countdown. Coming up on 3 minutes, waiting to hear how LOX loading is going.
Stage 1, LOX load is closed out.
And we've got closeout of the first stage LOX load. Now, on top of the Falcon 9, the GPS 3 space vehicle continues to be go. They have done their last activity, getting on internal power. They're waiting for liftoff now. Good news, Falcon 9 team, GPS team, we're working no issues on the rocket, and the weather continues to be green and good for launch. That call out you just heard, M1D engines are fully chilled in for flight. That means when we get spinning the turbo pumps at T-minus 2 seconds, the temperatures are cold enough so that we won't turn any of that liquid oxygen into gaseous oxygen, which would be bad to pull through the pumps. Now, as a reminder, as we come up on 2 minutes, if we don't launch today, we have a backup opportunity tomorrow. Liftoff time would be scheduled at 9:39 p.m. Eastern Time.
Stage 2, LOX load closed out.
We're inside 2 minutes, closing out liquid oxygen on the second stage. We're now going to begin draining the liquid oxygen down the strongback, away from the second stage, back down through the lines, making sure that everything is clear out of that strongback for liftoff. And that's what's going to be creating the white clouds that you can see around the rocket right now coming off of the strongback as we vent the gaseous oxygen that's very cold, and it meets the warm, humid Florida air, and you get the big white clouds of condensation. That's normal for us. Next major activity again at T-minus 1 minute will be in startup. First and second stages will also begin to pressurize for launch.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There's a call out. We've gone into startup. Next up, SpaceX launch director gives the final go for launch.
This is the mission director. Go for launch.
We're coming up at T-minus 30 seconds. Everything looking good. All systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 with the GPS 3 space vehicle number 4.
stage 1 flight press.
15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and we have an abort. All agencies stand by.
As you can see right now, it's T-minus 2 seconds. We did not get to T-minus 0. We heard the call out of an abort. They're currently safing the vehicle. We're going to be listening to hear if we can get some more information. John Innsbrucker back again. You can see the clock is reset to T-minus 15. They're going to attempt another launch. We are going to scrub for tonight because we'll be out of the window. However, that's where the clock resets to as they begin safing the vehicle. Right now the team is busy making sure that the automated sequences to safe the launch vehicle are underway. We did not get down to T0. We did not try to launch. We had the abort, as you saw on the screen, at about T-minus 2 seconds, which is just the start as we get into the engine ignition sequence. Now for Falcon 9, lighting rocket engines and then shutting them down is fairly normal. We do this in Texas when we test the stages. We also do this when we static fire the Falcon 9 on the launch pad, as we did with this rocket several days ago. So going through the sequence to safe the vehicle is fairly standard for the launch team. We're hoping that we may get an announcement from the launch director a little bit later over the countdown net. John Innsbrucker again back here at the webcast desk in SpaceX headquarters, Hawthorne, California. If you're just joining us, you can see T-minus 15 minutes.
The mission director is clear to scrub following today's abort. Stand by for discussion on recycle.
We've just heard the SpaceX launch director on the countdown net announce what we talked about earlier. We have a scrub for the evening. If you are with us, we got down to about T-minus 2 seconds approximately. We haven't seen the actual shutdown time. We were just starting the engine ignition sequence when we had a hold. We then began safing. We did not get into lighting all 9 of the Merlin rocket engines. Right now we're waiting to hear if there's anybody else coming up on the countdown net, but it doesn't appear so. So we did we did hold the countdown at about T-minus 2 seconds. Because our window only lasted 15 minutes tonight and we don't know how to quickly solve the issue and try to recycle the launch, plus we had already loaded propellant and we can't hold once we do that, we are scrubbed for the night, as you heard just a moment ago from the SpaceX launch director on the countdown net. We're going to hold on for just a little bit more, see if we can bring you any other information. Right now we're still waiting to find out whether it was a ground or a flight vehicle issue that caused us to hold the countdown and scrub for the night. John Innsbrucker with you again from the webcast desk here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Well, we dodged the weather tonight. We got down to almost T0, but we held at approximately T-minus 2 seconds as we were getting ready to ignite the 9 Merlin 1D engines that would then take us to liftoff and out into space. We are in a safing process right now, fairly standard for the Falcon 9. We've run this on the vehicle many times, those who have maybe seen static fires with us before. The vehicle is safe. Team is working through to make sure that they get all the steps complete. We did hear from the launch director, just reiterating that because of the hold at T-minus 2 seconds, we and the Space Force mission director have gone ahead and scrubbed the launch for the evening. Now, right now, the vehicle is being saved. Doesn't appear to be any issues on the launch pad, but that does end our launch opportunity for tonight. Now, our next launch opportunity is Saturday, tomorrow, at 9:39 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Now, we're not sure yet if we're going to recycle and try to launch in about 24 hours. The team's going to have to work through the issues, figure out whether or not we have to go inspect anything on the launch pad, how quickly we can do that. But we still have the possibility that we'll be protecting of trying to be able to go 24 hours from now. So whenever we do get another chance to launch Falcon 9 with GPS-3 Satellite Vehicle 4, hopefully you'll join us again at that next attempt. But until then, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.